homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, wisdom warrior Manjushri, all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Next, let us continue our in-depth study of the words of my perfect teacher. In this profound text, the words of my perfect teacher, we are now discussing the fundamental and universal principle of the impermanence of all life and existence. You should all be profoundly aware that this comprehensive preliminary practices teaching is being explained in exceptionally great detail this particular time. It may potentially take a considerable 2 or even 3 full years to thoroughly complete this extensive and profound spiritual journey. I hope that all Dharma friends present here, whether you live in the city or reside at the Buddhist Institute, will steadfastly persevere from the very beginning to the absolute end. If a few dedicated individuals must unfortunately leave the esteemed institute, you should diligently continue your important studies wherever you ultimately return to, always striving for excellence. Because now, relying on various convenient methods, we have diligently established numerous Dharma study centers and dedicated practice sites in various different geographical locations, providing accessible spiritual guidance and opportunities for profound meditation and learning. In this way, the dependent origination and conditions are present. So I sincerely hope that over the course of these next 2 or perhaps 3 years, which, when considered within the grand and extensive span of an entire person's life, I genuinely feel is truly not an exceptionally long period of time at all. If we cannot persevere from beginning to end in this regard, then even diligently practicing virtue and assiduously eliminating all obstacles over the course of 3 countless eons would indeed be an exceedingly difficult and arduous matter to accomplish. Therefore, both we ourselves and all other sentient beings should wholeheartedly make this profound and noble aspiration. The power of making aspirations is very strong. If you do not have a heartfelt aspiration, it is very likely that as ordinary people in this degenerate age, with such harsh external environments, the various things we perceive and hear in the external world can indeed bring forth all sorts of significant obstacles, and your spiritual practice will consequently never truly be able to consistently persist. Such formidable obstacles will inevitably arise. Therefore, I personally also very often pray with deep sincerity that I can completely and thoroughly teach this profound Dharma throughout my entire lifetime. In my own heart, this is also a kind of success. Of course, in such a challenging and tumultuous era, when the 5 degenerations are rampant and pervasive, whether one is a diligent speaker or an attentive listener, if we truly and earnestly want to accomplish this immensely significant and arduous great task, there is certainly a degree of difficulty. But no matter what, we must remain strong and persevere until the very end. We should possess such determination and ideals to courageously forge ahead. Therefore, we hope that everyone, I think apart from this, it may not be possible to find anything more important. Of course, as we study the preliminary practices, there are also some eminent monks and great masters from various major schools, as well as some devoted lay practitioners. I believe that studying the Dharma is not contradictory at all. It is all passed down from Shakyamuni Buddha. Such a lineage, I think, can be accepted by any school. For example, the content currently discussed in the preliminary practices, whether it's the Tiantai school, the Pure Land school, or the Huayan school in Han Buddhism, all these different schools acknowledge it without exception. If you don't acknowledge it, which part is it that you don't accept? Is it the impermanence of life you don't accept, or the suffering of samsara you don't accept? If you analyze it one by one like this, you'll find that all the major schools can accept it. It's the same in Tibetan Buddhism as well. It's just that some instructions and methods are different, that's all. In fact, we often study some of these as well, such as the instructions and teachings of the Sakya, Gelug, Jonang, and Kagyu schools. Various key instructions and Dharma methods. So, looking at the histories and biographies of the great masters of the past, they were not blindly attached to their own particular school. Recently, some people have also asked me, when prostrating, apart from our own Guru Rinpoche, is it okay to visualize other personal gurus as well? Some people have spoken to me quite directly saying, I really can't develop faith in you. Can I visualize other gurus instead? I replied that from the beginning of my teachings until now, I have never once said that you must pray to me or develop devotion toward me. I've never said that at all. But I personally have great faith in the Guru Rinpoche. I have advised everyone to pray to the Guru Rinpoche. This I have indeed said. However, if you feel that with some of Guru Rinpoche's lineages, your karmic connection or your faith is not quite sufficient, then you may visualize your own guru as your root guru. This should be acceptable. The Tantras also do not state that you must visualize a specific guru or that you must visualize only him. There is no such requirement. Previously, I used an analogy. For example, the light of the sun, if focused through a burning glass onto any object, it can potentially ignite or produce a significant amount of smoke. But the mirror positioned in between them must be absolutely genuine. It cannot, under any circumstances, be fake or counterfeit. If it is fake, it cannot gather the sunlight. If it is a real mirror, any one of them can produce fire. In the same way, when it comes to a spiritual teacher, one must follow what is described in the Tantras and the Vinaya Sutra and have a guru who possesses the authentic qualities. This is indispensable. If it is a true guru, then it doesn't matter if he is Han Chinese, Tibetan, Mongolian, or a guru from any other country. There is nothing wrong with that. Some people say that only gurus from a certain ethnicity are good and that our own ethnicity's gurus are not. This is also a narrow-minded way of thinking. In fact, the Buddha's elements of scriptures make no distinction between any ethnicity or region. As long as one truly has compassion for all beings in their heart and some understanding of the teachings on emptiness, such a guru can serve as a worthy successor in the Tathagata's lineage. So I hope that during the learning process, each and every one of you will definitely regard the Dharma as particularly important and valuable in your practice. We should truly value it. Nowadays, there are very few people in the world who set aside their own lives and devote themselves wholeheartedly to study. Such people possess a truly noble state of mind. But for quite a number of people, it seems that aside from being busy with their worldly affairs, they only study when they happen to have time, and if they don't, they simply don't study at all. It's just a matter of having the title, nothing more. Of course, this may bring some benefit to your mind stream more or less. But the most important thing is that each person truly needs to cultivate a certain mindset. For example, when we are required to prostrate every day, it's not as simple as it seems. Especially for those who are lazy, even doing 200 prostrations feels like a bit much. Because they don't want to move, they always feel like their body is just like a sow. If they could just lie down and sleep like that all the time, it would be extremely comfortable. As long as the blue sky exists above and the green earth below, they feel that enjoying a beautiful life in the embrace of nature like this is the happiest thing in their entire lifetime. Some lazy people live their lives just like this, but for those who are diligent, even doing 2,000 or 3,000 prostrations a day doesn't feel like enough. A human life is so rare and precious, so doing a few prostrations is really nothing. That's why our current expectations for everyone are not measured by the standards of those who are extremely diligent. But at the same time, we can't be extremely lax either. For those who are lazy, everything besides eating, drinking, and having fun feels like a burden. I often think that ordinary people really have this tendency, that doing good deeds feels like climbing a mountain. It's quite difficult. Even if it's just for a short time, like doing prostrations for 15 minutes, they might keep wondering, is the time up yet? Is it enough now? They might think like this. But if we're creating negative karma, or just in a neutral, unmindful state, 15 minutes passes by without us even noticing. It's over in a flash. For example, just chatting casually with friends, making a phone call, or having a conversation. In those cases, not to mention 15 minutes, even 2 or 3 hours can pass by in an instant. So our extremely precious time gets consumed in meaningless activities. And for us, that's something that happens effortlessly. But when it comes to spending our time on genuine Dharma practice or developing true understanding, it becomes quite difficult, both for ourselves and for others. Overall, I think that, especially now in this degenerate age, and particularly in big cities, so many people have absolutely no understanding of Buddhist doctrine, and now they only understand a little. But this understanding shouldn't just remain at the level of words or superficial language. It must be integrated into your own mind. Once the teachings of the Dharma are integrated into your mind, as I often say, they will naturally become part of your daily life. Once they are integrated into your life, then in everything you do, walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, you will never be apart from the Buddha's compassion and blessings. So I think that many Dharma friends present here truly are remarkable. Sometimes when I see, including some of the monastics in our institute, they are truly extraordinary. In society, they had status, fame, and wealth. They possessed all the worldly glory and immense riches, truly lacking nothing. Yet, despite all of that, they willingly gave all of that up. Then they came to a challenging place like this, with a harsh climate and extremely limited resources, to study and seek the Dharma in such a quiet mountain. At the very beginning, their motivation must have been extremely pure and truly worthy of praise. But as ordinary people, at first, our occasional renunciation cannot always be maintained. Some practitioners, the resolve they had 10 or 20 years ago, has only grown stronger and has never diminished. This is a truly commendable goal that we should diligently learn from and earnestly aspire to achieve. Yet, for some individuals, their initial profound faith was extraordinarily intense and deeply felt. So intense that I even worry whether it might fade away too quickly. Therefore, if your initial faith isn't particularly strong, I think that's also fine. As the saying goes, a gentleman's friendship is as light as water. At the very beginning, some people's faith is incredibly strong. For 2 or 3 days, they just look at their teacher and keep crying, shedding so many tears. Sometimes I worry that if you keep crying like that, will your tears ever dry up? But when you really need to cry, you can't shed a single tear. That's how it feels. Of course, for a very few individuals, it might also be the awakening of karmic connections from past lives. The virtuous roots within their own continuum naturally sprout. At such times, they are overwhelmed by emotion and unable to control themselves. This is a possibility. No matter what, cultivating preliminary practices is not so easy, but it is indeed very important. Without such practice, perhaps you might receive very profound empowerments and pith instructions, but whether they are truly beneficial to your own mind stream is another question. I hope those with wisdom will observe and reflect. Only after such observation will they understand. In short, this kind of practice is definitely beneficial for everyone right now. It's just that ordinary people have too many ingrained habits and cannot practice perfectly. Some individuals, because they cannot integrate all practices harmoniously, end up belittling and looking down on themselves. They think, I'm such a hopeless case, I can't practice any Dharma at all. There's no need to beat yourself up every day like this, because after all, we are not sages. We definitely have many afflictions. On the surface, everyone may seem as compassionate and gentle as golden bodhisattvas, but before attaining the state of a sage in our continuum, we certainly have very strong greed, terrifying anger, and deluded ignorance. The 84,000 afflictions are mainly rooted in these 3 major poisons. They often entangle our mental continuum. This is absolutely the case. However, there is indeed a world of difference between studying the Dharma and not studying it. You should also be aware of this yourself. When you were previously superstitious or had no faith at all, the way you approach life and the way you do now. After learning the Dharma, your entire outlook on the value of all things is still vastly different. Therefore, I think for all the Dharma friends present, it is extremely important not to let your resolve for the path waver. At the beginning, your faith may not be particularly strong, but it doesn't matter if your faith isn't strong. What is important is that this faith should be enduring. This is truly necessary. Next, the content we are going to discuss is as follows. Today, we will talk about the 5th point, contemplating impermanence through various analogies and meanings. By using all kinds of metaphors and meanings, we contemplate impermanence. Therefore, these metaphors and meanings play a significant role in our contemplation of impermanence. I distinctly remember that in the profound and insightful Songs of Realization by the revered Milarepa, it is explicitly mentioned and clearly stated, through these 8 analogies, we practice contemplating the profound nature of impermanence. The first analogy, even the most beautiful golden Buddha statues and sacred thangkas painted with precious gold, will eventually fade and lose their brilliant color. Then the second analogy, the beautiful, delicate, and fresh flowers will inevitably be swallowed and completely covered by the chilling, pristine white frost when the cold, crisp autumn season truly arrives. The third analogy vividly portrays the captivating journey of waterfalls and springs as they descend through the valleys. Initially, the water rushes and roars with considerable force and a powerful sound, creating an energetic display. However, upon reaching the lower elevations, it gradually transforms, becoming remarkably calm and profoundly silent, settling into a peaceful state after its dynamic descent. This is also a relevant analogy. This is indeed the third analogy that we are discussing. The fourth analogy presents a vivid image. Vast, lush, and vibrantly green rice fields stretching out under the sun will, in time, inevitably and systematically, all be cut down by the sharp, unyielding blade of the sickle. The fifth analogy, exquisite, delicate silk will ultimately be cut and meticulously trimmed by sharp scissors. The sixth analogy, precious treasures, despite their initial allure and perceived value, will eventually be abandoned and disregarded by people over time, losing their significance and appeal. The seventh analogy, although the crescent moon on the third night is very beautiful, consequently its overall shape will also significantly change and adapt, because the waxing moon will gradually grow fuller and its visible shape will continually change over time. The eighth analogy is about a newborn, truly adorable and innocent child who may tragically die prematurely when suddenly faced with significant and overwhelming obstacles. Through these 8 profound and insightful analogies, it is clearly and comprehensively shown that all phenomena, by their very inherent and fundamental nature, are perpetually and ceaselessly undergoing transformation, constantly evolving and displaying an undeniable and pervasive impermanence, a continuous state of flux and change that defines their existence. Some people in the world who have never been taught about impermanence, whether they are lay people or monastics, lack this concept in their daily lives. I often notice the thinking of some monastics and some lay people, and it should be said that they are completely ignorant in this regard. We also know that nowadays in cities there are many people who are busy and bustling about. They believe that the world is permanent and unchanging. It's as if they feel their own bodies could really exist in this world for millions of years. This is an illusion. Therefore, as long as we have received these profound instructions on the essential points of the Dharma, especially for those who have personally practiced the teachings on impermanence, they will definitely have a much weaker attachment to all phenomena and see things with detachment. You could say that once great impermanence appears before your eyes, you won't be surprised. To you, it will feel completely normal. For example, if you suddenly hear that a loved one has died, or that the person closest to you has already left this world, or when their behavior undergoes a dramatic change. People who have never studied impermanence simply can't accept it. They might choose to commit suicide or make some drastic change in their lives. Actually, I think all of these reactions as ordinary people show that learning about impermanence is very important in terms of how we approach life. Because the other day, I noticed that many people in our Bodhi society, most of them are around 40 or 50 years old and above. I thought, it would be best if people in their 20s or 30s could study impermanence. Because whether internationally or in China, people in their 20s and 30s, many of them are the most sensitive and experience the most suffering. They go through a lot of impermanent changes, especially in relationships. If someone who has studied impermanence loses the person they love most at that moment, they are mentally prepared and can think, this is impermanence. They use the concept of impermanence to antidote or control their own mental continuum. But most of these people basically haven't studied it. Not even 10% have. I did a count the other day. Looking at many Dharma friends, most of them are over 40 years old. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they're studying at university or for various other reasons. So in the future, I really hope, especially regarding the contemplation of impermanence, I feel that many people in the outside world are truly, truly pitiable. Their attachment to each other, as soon as things don't work out, they immediately start taking all kinds of medication. I've heard that nowadays many young people are searching for medicine every day. Now the goal of life has become seeking out medication. They first realize that many aspects of themselves are unsatisfactory, so they start looking for all sorts of drugs to commit suicide. Instead of this, it would be better to study impermanence. There's no need to look for medicine, and in the end you'll understand, though it's impermanence, all phenomena are impermanent. Memorizing a single scriptural proof can replace countless sleeping pills, or what people now call rat poison. Overall, the increase and decrease of kalpas also possess the nature of impermanence and constant change. Here, in general, we are talking about the processes of formation, abiding, destruction, and emptiness in the world. Of course, this concept may not be so easy for us to understand, because compared to a kalpa, or to a great kalpa, intermediate kalpa, or small kalpa, a human lifespan is still very short. It is indeed very brief. With such a short lifespan, contemplating such vast stretches of time, It may be rather difficult for us to fully grasp and comprehend, but no matter what the circumstances, we absolutely need to understand the entire comprehensive process of the world around us, in all its intricate details and complexities. In the beginning, during the initial kalpa, there were no sun or moon in the sky. All people illuminated their immediate surroundings with their own inherent radiance, shining brightly. They relied on miraculous powers to walk through the air, and their bodies were several yojanas tall. They lived on nectar, enjoying happiness and fulfillment comparable to that of celestial beings. At the very beginning, because of the manifestation of human merit, it should be said that in those early times, people lived extraordinarily happy and contented lives. Therefore, it is also explicitly stated in the Venerable Abhidharmakosha that in the very beginning, sentient beings were much like those residing in the form realm, but later they gradually developed a strong attachment to the sensation of taste. So at first, people truly lived very joyful and blissful lives, experiencing profound contentment. There was no difference from the heavenly realms. But later, as their merit gradually diminished, just as we discussed a couple of days ago, people began to develop the notions of self and mine among themselves. The appearance of male and female also emerged, and all natural light disappeared. Then various crops and other essential things began to grow abundantly all over the fertile land. Consequently, people's accumulated merit gradually and noticeably disappeared. Afterwards, due to the afflictions and unwholesome actions of sentient beings, people's various merits declined more and more rapidly. Eventually, it turned into the situation we see today. Now, human lifespans are about 100 years or around 70 years. The way of life at the beginning has slowly, gradually changed into the way we live and survive today, is that everyone has their own home, their own country, their own group. There is a very strong sense of self and attachment to what is mine. People are all busy protecting their own property, politics, economy, reputation, and so on. Desperately busy day and night every single day. The current situation we face in this kind of lifestyle, or these social changes and transformations, are generally very difficult to describe in history. Many Dharma friends in the past studied foreign history and Chinese history, but the accounts within only cover a few thousand or 10,000 years of human history, a concept so recent. Beyond that, even more transcendent concepts of time and space are basically absent from our minds. So the descriptions in Buddhism are fundamentally different from the theories of some worldly and contemporary theorists or historians of today's modern era. There is a significant difference. Nowadays, people's afflictions are becoming increasingly intense and coarse. As a result, merit and virtue are increasingly diminished, and lifespans are becoming ever shorter. Eventually, when the human lifespan reaches just 10 years, in the coming era, a multitude of various devastating calamities, including widespread disease, prolonged and brutal war, and severe famine, will inevitably reach their absolute peak and manifest themselves prominently throughout the entire world. The sentient beings of Jambudvapa will be almost on the verge of extinction. Right now, we can still say that people's lifespans and wealth and blessings in various aspects are relatively good. But in the end, things will gradually and continuously decline further. People in the world say that nowadays the material standard of living is constantly improving. Everyone is determined to achieve a moderately prosperous society. But perhaps this so-called moderately prosperous society will be the society when the human lifespan is only 10 years. Just joking. You all don't really understand what a moderately prosperous society means. Let's not talk about this so-called moderately prosperous society anymore. So we can say that our blessings are gradually being exhausted. In the end, generally speaking, when the human lifespan is around 10, 20 or 30 years. This is specifically described in related treatises and scriptures. At that time, there will be the calamity of plague, the calamity of war, and the calamity of famine. Once these three devastating calamities occur, basically all of humanity will be completely wiped out. For example, when the calamity of a widespread epidemic arises, that is the terrible plague calamity, which can decimate populations and cause immense suffering. The consequences are dire and far-reaching for all living beings. It is widely said that within the span of 7 days in the 7th month of the lunar calendar, a significant event occurs. A massive epidemic disaster and infectious disease will break out in the world. All people, every single individual in this vast world will eventually and inevitably die. At the time of death, all kinds of medicines will be completely ineffective. During the devastating calamity of a prolonged war, a fierce conflict tragically breaks out over a period of 7 continuous days and 7 relentless nights. It's not that one country invades another country, or that someone launches a war against you. It's not like that. Instead, within each individual person, there arises an incredibly intense and profoundly powerful hatred. Consequently, people begin to fight viciously against each other, and every single person they encounter or see transforms into a formidable and dangerous enemy. As a direct and devastating result of this pervasive animosity, they relentlessly kill each other, leading to a catastrophic outcome where humanity is essentially and tragically wiped out from existence. Finally, during 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days comes the calamity of famine. At that time, basically all the crops and food in the world will have no nutritional value and will not be able to grow at all. There will be widespread and prolonged droughts alongside all kinds of highly irregular and unpredictable rainfall patterns. As a devastating consequence, all of people's accumulated wealth will be completely wiped out, and there will be pervasive and extreme hunger across the population, if the bones of those who once lived to 100 years are found. So they use this as nourishment and sustenance for survival. Last year, I met a person from Hongyuan County in Aba Prefecture who shared his story with me. He told me that in the 1950s, when severe famine occurred in both the Tibetan regions and Han regions, people at that time would often go to charnel grounds to dig up those skeletal remains and bones. If they found some human bones in the charnel grounds, they would take them back and boil them in a pot to make soup. And after drinking it, basically within 2 or 3 days, their bodies would feel strong and warm. So here, if some of our esteemed Dharma friends are currently not in the best of health or are experiencing any physical discomfort or ailments, there really is this kind of saying. At that time, many people managed to find some food. If they found even a little, especially some animal bones, they would be very happy and use them to make soup. So sometimes when we look at people's lives today, it seems like they should be very happy, even though we lack a sense of contentment. Sometimes when we see people in the cities or those whose spiritual practice isn't very good, they always feel like there's an emptiness inside their hearts that can't be filled. They constantly think, I don't have this, I don't have that. Their hearts feel empty and hollow. In fact, nowadays, when it comes to food, clothing, and all aspects of daily necessities, within these few short decades of life, we should be able to feel content and make use of what we have. Back then, however, it was truly and genuinely very, very difficult and challenging to achieve. With war, disease, famine, and chaos, everything comes to an end, then the sun, moon, and years cease in turn. As profoundly stated in the ancient Buddhist scripture, the Abhidharmakosha, when the ultimate end finally comes, people's accumulated good fortune will be completely exhausted. Just as was comprehensively mentioned earlier, at that critical juncture, there will tragically be the widespread calamities of devastating plague, severe famine, and destructive war. These 3 great final calamities will appear in the human world. They will occur over 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days respectively. After these events, the vast majority of humanity, a staggering 99% of the entire human population, will have been completely wiped out, leaving virtually no one behind. Everywhere, even if there are some possessions left without owners, in such deserted places, gradually, little by little. It is also said here that at that time, an incarnation of Maitreya Bodhisattva will teach the wondrous method of abstaining from killing to the remaining people. During that calamity, Maitreya Bodhisattva's incarnation will appear. He will first come to this world in a manifested form. To those who survived all these disasters, these people are very resilient, and they are the ones who remain in the end. Maitreya Bodhisattva's incarnation will teach them not to kill. So, the truly wonderful and profoundly significant Dharma of not killing is indeed a magnificent principle. If most people in the world refrain from killing and adopt a vegetarian diet, then, regarding all kinds of wars and calamities faced by humanity, and all sorts of wars in the degenerate age, gradually people's hearts will turn toward kindness, purifying their afflictions, and bringing a harmonious atmosphere to the entire world. At that time, the average human height will be about 1 cubit. Human lifespan will also gradually and progressively increase, potentially reaching up to a remarkable 20 years old, a significant extension from current expectations, and will continue to rise steadily. When the human lifespan reaches 80,000 years, Lord Maitreya will appear. First, he will manifest Buddhahood at the Vajra seat in India. The Vajra seat in India is the place where the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate aeon attain enlightenment, an extremely sacred site. After attaining Buddhahood, he will turn the wheel of Dharma. The turning of the Dharma wheel will be largely the same as that of Shakyamuni Buddha, manifesting the turning of the great Dharma wheel. So sometimes when we look at Buddhism, it describes many future events with remarkable clarity. Whereas any worldly theory, I see that many historians, when it comes to the future of humanity, can only make judgments and predictions. Beyond that, there is no clear direction at all. Other major religions, when it comes to the future of humanity, whether it is various manifestations of destruction or growth, none of these phenomena are adequately described. So, in these important respects, as devoted Buddhists, we should truly recognize the profound greatness of Buddhist teachings and their immense wisdom. Everyone should understand this. After this cycle of increase and decrease repeats 18 times, because at the very beginning, human lifespan is immeasurable. And after this immeasurable lifespan, with 18 cycles in between, in the end, the lifespan of humanity will once again reach an immeasurable length. It starts as an immeasurable lifespan, and in the end, it is also immeasurable. When the lifespan returns to being immeasurable, the Buddha of Supreme Understanding will appear in the world. The Buddha of Supreme Understanding is the last Buddha among the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate aeon. At that time, all the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate aeon will have already appeared in the world. He too will manifest Buddhahood at the Vajra seat in India. The lifespan of this Buddha's presence in the world will be the sum total of the lifespans of all the previous 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate aeon. His activities in benefiting sentient beings will also be equal to the combined activities of the 1,000 Buddhas. Therefore, his activities are the most extensive, and his time in the world is also the longest. For ordinary people, these principles are truly beyond comprehension. Only those with faith who develop confidence in Buddhism can understand, just barely. If we really try to grasp it in our hearts, it is likely to be quite difficult. For example, if we genuinely know absolutely nothing about the subject of geography, and someone explains the Milky Way, the Sun, and the conditions of the entire Earth, it might be very hard to understand. Back when we were in middle school, there was a teacher named Wang who taught us geography. He kept explaining and explaining to us. Many of us Tibetan students in middle school at that time didn't understand Chinese. We just stared blankly at him. He kept saying, "Earth, Earth," but we couldn't understand. Then he drew a circle on the blackboard. He said, "Anyway, you just need to know that the Earth is round," because we didn't understand anything. In elementary school, we basically never saw any Han Chinese teachers. When we first got there, we didn't understand, but later he told us, "Anyway, the Earth is just round." He drew a circle and told us this with a look of disappointment. So when it comes to these concepts of space and time, maybe we really don't have faith in the Dharma. For people who have never truly speculated about the future, it's very hard to understand. In fact, the entire situation of the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate aeon, all the changes in the entire Trikilya cosm, the 3,000 great 1,000 worlds, undergo such increases and decreases. So, in the end, even this fortunate aeon will completely disappear without a trace. Therefore, observing the increase and decrease of eons is also inseparable from impermanence. We must definitely understand that all phenomena and everything in existence are completely without any substantial essence or reality whatsoever. So you need to know and comprehend this fundamental truth in general. That the entire external world, whether it's the world of physical objects or the world of sentient beings, all of these are inseparable from impermanence. The three realms are all impermanent, like drifting clouds in autumn. This is what is stated in the Extensive Adornment Sutra. The three realms are all impermanent, like drifting clouds in autumn. Just like the floating clouds of autumn, there is not a single thing that is permanent. This has also been mentioned in other scriptural sources we have used before. The three realms are impermanent like autumn clouds. The birth and death of sentient beings is like watching a play. The entire three realms are like the white clouds of autumn. Autumn's white clouds are not necessarily visible in cities in Han regions. Sometimes in the city, let alone white clouds, you can't even see the sky. If you can't see the sky, you certainly can't see the clouds. All you can clearly see are the thick black fumes billowing out of some truly massive industrial factories, especially noticeable in the vast expanse of the northeast region along both sides of the bustling highways. You'll observe this pervasive industrial presence. In every city, you see black smoke rising. Other than that, you basically can't see any white clouds. But in our Tibetan region, why do the Buddhist scriptures often use autumn clouds as an analogy? Is it the same situation in India? Nowadays, it sometimes appears that India looks remarkably similar to our Han regions. It's often not very clear-cut, making it challenging to discern the unique characteristics at first glance. But this analogy can still be used. Buddhist scriptures often use this profound and ancient metaphor in the vast and beautiful land of Tibet, whether it's the ethereal autumn clouds or the delicate spring clouds. You see white clouds in the sky appear in an instant and disappear just as quickly. Every phenomenon in the world is no exception to this. We must understand this principle. In writing, it's very simple. But in your heart, have you truly developed a firm understanding of impermanence? That depends on your own effort. Even though right now, in the same setting, I'm explaining this principle of impermanence, everyone below may have different karmic connections and capacities to accept it. So the benefits each person receives may also be completely different. It was the same when we were students before. A teacher would give the same lesson to everyone. However, the specific knowledge that each individual student ultimately gained was completely and utterly different. Indeed, some students, unfortunately, didn't learn anything at all from the experience, and in fact even developed a deep-seated resentment toward the teacher. There are truly all kinds of diverse and varied situations that can arise. So, in this complex and intricate world, it is genuinely and profoundly true that every single person possesses their own unique and distinct causes and conditions. Overall, studying the Dharma is very important. Those who are capable should share the principles they understand and should teach them to those with the right connections, anytime and anywhere. This is how I see it, because you are spreading the teachings of Buddhism, which is a great undertaking. Some of our Dharma teachers, for example, don't want to become monks. In fact, some people think that being a monk means having no social status. But I believe that the status of a Dharma teacher should be very high. Why is it that our Guru Rinpoche did not choose any worldly position? He was not pursuing status either. But if we look at history, many great monks and accomplished masters, for example, Venerable Atisha, Master Tsongkhapa, and the scholar Jinming, all of them spent their entire lives as Dharma teachers or scholars. Their contributions to humanity and to the world were immense. Therefore, whether it's a few counselors or Dharma teachers, if they share the profound teachings of impermanence that they understand with others, I think this is truly wonderful. The other day, I went to a school where some teachers were teaching the Dharma of impermanence. From the expressions on many students' faces, it was clear that they truly understood. I think it's so meaningful that schools in the world today are also teaching impermanence. Because when they grow up, they won't be like some people in society nowadays who think about money all the time, whether their eyes are open or closed, as if, apart from money, there is no other goal for coming into this world. But that's not how it is. If we understand even a little bit of the Buddha's teachings, we'll know how to manage our lives, maintain balance, and understand proper boundaries. Otherwise, some people who have a bit of ability or some wealth are endlessly greedy and have no self-control at all. And those who don't have these things just complain about everything and blame others. They are always trapped in a state of anxiety and suffering. Therefore, in this modern day and age, the only true and profound remedy that can genuinely save and uplift everyone is the timeless wisdom of Buddhism. Buddhism truly and deeply helps to soothe and enlighten the hearts and minds of every individual being, offering solace and guidance. If it helps the mind, it truly benefits both body and mind. Of course, not everyone necessarily accepts the Dharma. Even during the Buddha's time, it was the same. Let alone now, in such a degenerate age, it's even more so. So, in our daily lives, we should understand the teachings of Buddhism. Especially those who are wise and capable should study the more subtle and profound principles of Buddhism. One should understand its meaning. If you don't possess such vast and profound wisdom, at the very least, you should understand some basic ways of living in our current existence, as well as the essential instructions for attaining liberation and not falling into lower realms. These are things you must also understand. Next, it is said that observing the changing of the 4 seasons is also a sign of impermanence. This is probably easier to understand, the changes of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. I think there's nothing difficult to grasp here. It should be quite clear. In summer, all the grasslands are lush and green. Rain falls like nectar, nourishing the earth everywhere. People also fully enjoy the beautiful and pleasant scenery. Flowers of every color compete in beauty and splendor, dazzling and vibrant. It almost feels like a heavenly realm. Just as it is vividly described here, in the warm summer months, the entire land is completely covered in a lush, verdant green. When rain falls everywhere like nectar, a natural sense of joy and happiness arises in people's hearts. Especially when you appreciate the scenery outside, which looks like paradise, with all kinds of beautiful flowers. The forests, stunning landscapes, mountains and rivers, springs, and the blue sky with white clouds. Especially in Tibetan regions, the scenery in summer truly gives you a certain feeling. It feels as if you've entered a heavenly realm with nothing left to desire. Sometimes, perhaps because I have a strong sense of attachment, especially in summer and spring when you go to the riverside, listening to the sound of the flowing water while gazing out at the whole natural world. The joy and happiness in your heart are beyond words and language to express. Truly, the human world is beautiful. Some time ago, I was resting by a river with a few Dharma friends. I said, if I were to die, I would rather die in winter than in spring or summer, because the environment is just too beautiful, too wonderful. I truly and deeply feel that I absolutely do not want to leave this wonderful place, and I certainly do not want to give up on this incredible experience. Although the vibrant summer season is undeniably beautiful and full of life, bringing warmth and sunshine, when the crisp and cool autumn season inevitably arrives, the chilly, biting wind begins to transform the lush, verdant green fields into a striking landscape of golden and yellow hues, signaling a significant change in the natural world. And all the flowers and plants gradually wither and fade away. So, when autumn comes, perhaps it's not the same anymore. The entire surrounding environment is regrettably not as beautiful and vibrant as it once was in its former glory. When the intensely chilly and biting wind begins to blow, whether it is the vast expanse of the earth itself or the delicate blossoming flowers, everything rapidly changes its color and appearance in a remarkably very short period of time, losing its original charm and vitality. So when autumn arrives, people's hearts naturally generate a kind of desolate and deeply miserable, endless sadness and melancholy within their beings. There is such a profound feeling. So when autumn comes, you will deeply feel and realize that, impermanence is indeed very real. In summer, when you go to the riverside, it's so comfortable. But when autumn comes, it's not like that. Fallen leaves are everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's a kind of bleakness, a stark emptiness in nature. So when autumn, with its vibrant hues, finally arrives, it's just not quite the same. And then inevitably comes the long, cold winter. The ground is frozen solid, water turns to ice, and the cold wind is biting. Even if you search along many streets, you can't find a single blooming flower from summer. When winter comes, even if you walk down many roads, here a road generally means riding a horse for an entire day. And in the past, in Tibetan customs, this was called a road, or sometimes many roads. So whether you choose to ride a majestic horse or opt to take a comfortable automobile, the journey awaits you. Even if you travel to many, many different places, you might not in fact find a single one. Nowadays, with more advanced technology, for example, you can drive from Tibet to Chengdu. And in the depths of winter, Chengdu might indeed be a little better. Then, if you were to take a plane journey to the beautiful island of Hainan, the climatic change would be much, much more dramatic, a truly noticeable shift. All of a sudden, here it's all ice, but once you arrive there, it's all flowers in bloom. So sometimes when you reach another world or another place, you experience a different kind of feeling. But whether in Tibet or elsewhere, the changes between spring, autumn, and winter are especially dramatic. In this particular way, you come to truly feel that all phenomena, everything around us, are indeed impermanent. That's why in the past, Chan Buddhism often said, in spring, there are 100 flowers. In autumn, the moon. In summer, cool breezes. In winter, snow. In fact, such poetry also illustrates the principle of impermanence. The changes of the 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, should truly make us profoundly realize that psychologically and intrinsically, we still possess certain deep-seated attachments to the transient external world around us. Consequently, a profound and undeniable sense of impermanence should naturally and inevitably arise within our innermost being. As spring passes and autumn comes, cold gives way to heat, and autumn, winter, and spring appear in turn. Everything that appeared in the previous season transforms into something entirely different. And these are clear examples of impermanence that everyone can see. We should be very familiar with the changes of the 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. especially when we are good at contemplating impermanence. When autumn arrives, we realize, oh, summer has passed. Everything is impermanent. My body, my lifespan, everything is impermanent. When winter or spring comes, we also experience different feelings. This becomes a favorable condition for spiritual practice. Of course, it might be hard to find someone who has never contemplated impermanence at all. If you reflect on yesterday and today, or this morning and tonight, this year and next year, everything is constantly changing, moment by moment. So, nothing in this world is truly permanent, absolutely reliable, or inherently stable. Indeed, everything is perpetually in flux, always changing. There is nothing truly fixed or immutable. Yesterday I wanted to practice diligently, but today I might not feel the same way. It's possible that a different thought or intention arises. This year I want to do this particular thing, but by next year that intention may have completely changed. This year I plan to go somewhere, but next year I might not go at all. So even the changes within our own minds allow us to see clearly the truth that all phenomena are impermanent. Especially in the bustling cities, the tranquil villages, and the serene monasteries where we currently reside and live our daily lives, we can also observe this phenomenon very clearly and distinctly. Consider, for instance, people who were once incredibly wealthy and remarkably prosperous have now fallen into decline, and some have even ended up with broken families and ruined lives. While those who were once poor and destitute with little power have, in this very life, become wealthy and influential. All of these phenomena are inseparable from the nature of impermanence. If we can truly observe, we will see that everything is inseparable from the nature of impermanence. Previously, in the Song of Impermanence by the Guru Rinpoche, it was said, if one can contemplate all inner and outer phenomena, they serve as teachings on the impermanence of life. If you can contemplate all inner and outer things, be it the changing of the seasons, spring, summer, autumn and winter, or your friends and family, your home, your loved ones, if you look at these from the perspective of principle, then everything becomes a book of impermanence, that is, a good teacher of impermanence. It serves as a clear mirror for learning and reflection. You don't need any other teachings. Just look. Winter comes, then spring arrives, then autumn follows. This entire phenomenon, or the many changes among the people around us, can be clearly seen, including in our Bodhi society, the fellow practitioners who started with us at the beginning. Many of them have now left, and new ones have joined. This group of people will also change, so it's very apparent. Therefore, in many of our families, their prosperity and success may eventually decline to the point of begging or even end up in prison. You can observe this phenomenon with remarkable clarity in various specific situations. In the past, there was a globally renowned and exceptionally famous architectural masterpiece, internationally recognized as the Taj Mahal. In India, this magnificent structure is widely considered to be one of the truly remarkable 7 wonders of the entire world. It is a truly immense and remarkably grand mausoleum, an architectural marvel of significant scale. From its compelling and profound story, I think it's easy to clearly see that everything in existence is inherently impermanent. Why do I say? Because the king who built the famous Taj Mahal was called Shah Jahan, who was very evil and cruel in his nature and actions, really not much different from some of the tyrannical kings we see today. At that time, he entered into matrimony with Mumtaz, a woman who was widely recognized and celebrated as a world-famous beauty. Later, after enduring many arduous and protracted wars, he ultimately won a particularly significant and decisive battle. Following this momentous achievement, the esteemed Shah Jahan then rightfully ascended to the imperial throne. After gaining the throne, he gave himself this name. Shah Jahan actually means King of the World or Great King of the World. He gave himself this title of Great King of the World. At that time, India had indeed conquered quite a considerable portion of various tribes and territories throughout the region, and then when his beloved wife was 21 years old, they got married. Later, his beloved consort, a woman of considerable grace and strength, tragically died in childbirth at the relatively young age of 39. This devastating event occurred after many years of devoted companionship. By the time of her untimely passing, they had shared a profound and enduring bond, having lived together for a remarkable 18 years, a period filled with both joy and challenges. Throughout those 18 years of their shared life, she displayed incredible fertility and resilience, giving birth to an astonishing 14 children. Of the 14 children born to them, it seems that 7 individuals survived, while the others, sadly, died. Later, as mentioned earlier, when she died in childbirth, he was especially heartbroken by this immense loss. As she was leaving this world, he asked her if she had any final wishes. She said that after leaving this world, she wished for him to build her a mausoleum unlike any other in the world. The king then promised her this. After her passing, it took an astonishing 22 years and the dedicated involvement of approximately 20,000 skilled craftsmen to complete this monumental undertaking. At that particular time, almost the entirety of the country's accumulated wealth was meticulously spent on its construction. They painstakingly built this magnificent white mausoleum. Of course, we can readily imagine the immense challenges and the intricate nature of the entire construction process. To build it over 22 years is simply unimaginable. Later, after the construction was finally completed, he cut off all the thumbs of all the craftsmen involved. Some say there were 20,000 workers, some say even more than that. He had all those skilled craftsmen's thumbs completely chopped off. Why? Because she demanded that it be unique in the world. He was afraid that this craftsmanship, because they did such a good job, they might build a second tomb elsewhere. So, in a truly brutal act, he had the thumbs of all 20,000 skilled craftsmen meticulously cut off. After cruelly cutting them off, he then buried them together with the lifeless body of his beloved wife. He had originally wanted to construct a grand black tomb for himself, positioned directly opposite the pristine white mausoleum. This was so that the two distinct structures would perpetually face each other. This was also his profound and deeply sincere way of expressing his enduring affection and cherished longing for his truly beloved concubine. But later, unexpectedly, his son usurped the throne and killed his other brothers. He was tragically imprisoned in a desolate and isolated fortress, situated not far from the magnificent and iconic Taj Mahal. For a grueling period of 8 long and arduous years, he was cruelly confined within the cramped and suffocating confines of a small, unforgiving prison cell. Throughout those incredibly difficult and solitary 8 years, his only solace, his sole connection to the outside world, came from a tiny, grimy window. From this minuscule opening, he could heartbreakingly only perceive the shimmering, ethereal reflection of the majestic Taj Mahal, distorted and distant as it appeared in the tranquil waters of the nearby lake. All he could do was keep looking at it. Sometimes when you look at their history, it really is quite pitiful. For 8 years, he kept gazing at the reflection of the Taj Mahal. In the end, his eyesight gradually deteriorated until he could no longer see. He kept looking at it intently through the shimmering reflection of a magnificent gemstone. Eventually, after a prolonged period of profound despair, he sadly fell into a deep depression and ultimately passed away. So, from the very pinnacle of his immense power and absolute authority, at the absolute peak of his glorious reign, he ended up imprisoned in the end. Looking at situations like this, there really is nothing permanent in this world. The same goes for King Saddam. At first, the Saddam International Airport, the whole country, everyone was celebrating. Every household hung his portrait and people showed him great respect every day. Later, he was imprisoned and executed by hanging. After his death, people still remained ignorant. Similarly, everyone would celebrate and dance. When he came to power, people also danced. Long live Saddam, and so on. When he left this world, a significant number of people were dancing again. So, whether it's status, wealth, or many actions around us, it truly is just as the Guru Rinpoche has said, everything is impermanent. This is the best spiritual teacher. If we look at the world around us, whether it's the physical world or the world of sentient beings, all the various phenomena that appear, if you can observe them, are all metaphors for impermanence and teachers of impermanence. If you cannot observe this, then even the profound instructions written in books may be dismissed as nothing important by some people, just going in one ear and out the other. In that case, it may not necessarily be beneficial for their minds. Therefore, we hope that all fellow practitioners can truly understand the profound meaning of impermanence, deeply experience its profound significance. That's all for today's talk.
Om